Well, when Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, $739 billion were allocated for planned spending. With this influx of money into infrastructure projects here domestically, is investing your own money into this asset class a good decision for you? Well, let's weigh it. Here to tell us a little bit more about investing in future infrastructure here is Luba Nikulina, who is the IFM Investors Chief Strategy Officer. Great to have you here with us on set.
It's a pleasure to be here, Brad. Thank you.
Let's dive in here. I mean, first and foremost, when we're talking about infrastructure spending, what are we talking about?
So infrastructure assets are physical assets that provide essential services to our economy. So these are assets without our society cannot exist.
Right.
There are some major sectors there, such as transportation. So we're talking about ports, airports, toll roads. Then there are utilities such as water supply, power generation, power transmission. Then an increasingly growing sector is everything related to communications, 5G networks, data centers. And then there is social infrastructure, where we talk about hospitals and schools. Now, these are physical assets. The question is, what is the attraction for investors in investing in those assets? And the key benefit that you get there is the resilience of those assets, because they tend to be either in monopolistic positions as toll roads or regulated by government, and hence the cash flows are rather stable. And importantly, in the current environment is also the inflation linkages of those cash flows.
Absolutely. And so for investors out there that are trying to figure out which pillar within this broader infrastructure investing mix makes most sense for them, how should they be evaluating that?
I would probably say that the best out of these segments is actually when you combine them and have exposure to different segments.
Okay.
And this is what we at IFM Investors provide to our clients. We have the track record of 30 years of building this portfolio that is diversified across different segments. And more importantly, when you invest in infrastructure, you also generally tend to have long-term horizon. So you're not investing for a quick buck there. When you invest into it, you are literally thinking generations ahead. And the way to access it is generally tends to be through an open-ended fund structure, where you buy the asset at a good price when you have an opportunity, but then you hold it for as long as you can and generate the cash flows, benefit from this cash yield.
Now, are we talking about, and kind of thinking about the type of assets that people should be looking across? It sounds like we're not talking about owning individual names, maybe more of an ETF approach, sector-based ETF even. How have you been exploring that?
Yeah, individual assets is definitely, that would be only for very large pension funds with big investment teams. They would go directly. Normally, you would use a fund manager like us to invest in those assets. Now, you mentioned ETFs. Obviously, ETFs are all over there for retail investing. In infrastructure, it's really hard to do it in a passive way, which ETF represents. So you really need to have an active management approach. When you invest, like, there are some infrastructure stocks that are listed, but they have a lot of volatility and a lot of linkages with market beta. When you invest through funds like ours, that is open-ended, but nevertheless, it has a team of 150 investment professionals that sit on the board of those assets, think about their capital expenditure plans, think about what level of leverage you apply in a way that continues to preserve the resilience of this asset class. This is the way to be successful and generate the returns across the market cycle.
Just lastly, while we have you here, and we think about, of course, the natural and the physical highways by which we travel, or the waterways and ports where infrastructure comes back to as well. But there are highways that data travels across, that data needs to be secured. How far are we from even cybersecurity being thought of as an infrastructure type of investment as well?
It is, and it is almost an essential element of every physical asset you own, be it toll road or be it a data center. So all of this, it's almost like an emergence of new type of infrastructure. We sometimes refer to it next generation infrastructure. It's all interconnected. Obviously, there are risks that cybersecurity needs to consider, and this is why you need this active management to ensure that you have the right governance and the right approach there. But then also there are opportunities that AI presents to the assets, like, I don't know, smart grid, smart cities.
Sure.
All of this is out there, and all of this requires investment. So it's an opportunity for investors.
Luba, great to have you here in studio with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you so
for taking
much.
the time. Luba Nikulina, who is the IFM Investors Chief Strategy Officer.